Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 3 of Radio Days with Gary Music Miller. For a change, I am Gary Music Miller, not for the change that I'm not usually Gary Music Miller, but I usually don't introduce the show. The fellow that introduces the show created the show, helped us set up here, is responsible, is by the name of Dave Black. Dave, you're out there somewhere? You want to say hi, Dave?
Hi, Dave.
He said hi, Dave. So he's still with us and doing well. He's not here today because I have a special guest who I'll introduce to you in just a moment on my left here. One thing I definitely want to do is thank you. If you're tuned in to our first 2 episodes, we appreciate the feedback. We hope you'll keep coming to us and talking with us. The reason for this show is you. It's not me. It may have my name on it, but it's not spotlight for Gary Music Miller. As opposed to that, it's a way for you to communicate with me. And so many people over the last 10 or 11 years since I've been out of the business, so to speak, have come to me and said they grew up listening to me, they loved it, they liked me, they did so many different stories. So this is my way to give back to you. And Dave took about 5 years to convince me to actually do this. So I hope that you enjoy what we're going to present to you today. The scene you see us in is one of the mock studios at the West Virginia Museum of Radio and Technology. And I mention that because we are in Huntington, and I had never been here before until 2015. I was lucky enough to be inducted into the West Virginia Broadcasting Hall of Fame, and it's housed here at the museum, the award ceremony every year. So it is a really amazing place. That's all I can tell you. If you've never been here, there are rooms and rooms and rooms and rooms of nothing but radio equipment, old radio equipment, dating back to the 30s and 40s, 50s, 60s. There's a shortwave radio here in one of the rooms that I believe belonged to my dad at one point. At least it looks exactly like it. But there's also a huge amount of television memorabilia here. Looking right here at one of the huge, ancient, I guess, WSAZ television cameras, and WSAZ, WHDM, WCHS, we're all represented here. There's also a line of a hall, if you will, of the Wall of Fame, I guess you could call it, where people who have been enshrined in the Hall of Fame, like Don Knotts, Peter Marshall, Soupy Sales, Conchata Ferrell, Tom T. Hall, how can I forget him?
Yeah.
We have a picture with Tom. We'll mention that earlier, a little bit later. But I mean, just a little Jimmy Dickens. All of these incredible performers are in the Broadcasting Hall of Fame. And it's worth going down and just reading about these people and seeing these people. Every time I go down, I see the picture of Mr. Cartoon, Jewel Huffman. And I think, my gosh, what great memories that brings of me. And I've been here now 4 or 5 times. I think every time I've been here, I've seen something new. So we want to invite you to come down here. They are open, Dave, you can help me with this, Tuesdays and weekends. We're not exactly sure, but I know they're open on Saturday. It would be a great way to spend a Saturday afternoon. Come down here, go through everything, take a look at everything. It's free as far as I know. I believe they accept donations.
And they need them desperately.
And they need them desperately to keep this place going. But it is, as I say, West Virginia's best kept secret, I think. And an absolutely amazing thing, whether you were a radio professional or a television professional, or you just watched radio and TV, come down and visit it. You'll enjoy it. The address is, I gotta say, we're basically unscripted, except when I need my glasses. The address is 1640 Florence Avenue in Huntington. And I have never been out here. It's the previous location of one of the schools,
Harveytown School.
Harveytown School. And if you don't know how to get here, get a GPS, get a friend, but find your way out here. You're going to enjoy yourself. I guarantee it, to quote Justin Wilson. Now, I mentioned that I have a special guest, and I think he's probably the perfect person to have on episode 3. Because during the first 2 episodes we talked about how I got into radio, last episode we dealt on my getting into radio at the age of 16, and somebody asked how in the world did somebody without any experience get a job like that. Joel and I go back to high school. We go back to Benton High School. He was, I believe, 2 years my junior.
Right.
So I was a senior when I got my first job at WWHY, and Joel was 2 years younger than I, but we did all kinds of things together. So, Joel, I tell you what, first of all, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
I appreciate you being here. I would like for you, if you don't mind, to, I have a little cheat sheet here too. I don't want to forget to talk about anything. But if you can share your memories, any memories you might have regarding radio, music, me, and yourself.
It goes back to band class. We were, and as fortune would have it, we both played the same instrument, which was?
The tuba.
The tuba, that's right. And
I've often guessed, I don't mean to interrupt you, I probably will you a million times, but as you know, I played bassoon, clarinet, saxophone,
yeah,
tuba, bass guitar, piano, organ. I played everything under the sun and nothing any good. I was not any good at any of them, but go ahead.
Well, anyway, in you being first chair and me being third or whatever I was, from time to time we just had a chance to strike up conversations there in band class. And we kind of got to know that we both like music, we both like radio. You were a big fan of Larry Glick on WBZ, as I recall.
Do you remember me actually being on his show?
Yeah, I remember. I heard the tape of it.
I called WBZ in Boston, and they put me on the air at 10 o'clock at night, and there was a very famous guy by the name of Larry Glick, and all Larry said to me, I talked about 5 seconds, and he said, give a glass of milk and a cookie, and go to sleep, kid, and hung up on me.
Well, we were both big fans of the Skywave on AM back then, and listened to WLS in Chicago, WCFL,
Absolutely.
and that is where I got the taste for radio formatics and the top 40 genre.
Right.
And so anyway, we were talking there in band class, and you had been when you were a junior, you were in Bill Heberlin's journalism class, as I remember.
That's correct.
I didn't start with him until the following year, but you told me that there was a gig that Bill had, or Bob Hogsett, I guess, had told you about, where that they were going to be running Charleston Charlie's baseball games on WMUL at Marshall. And they wanted high school students to come and volunteer and to push the buttons for the baseball game.
And not only that, but the fact that was many of the college kids were going home for the summer, and they wanted to keep the station on the air.
And so I took that and I contacted them as well, and that led to me doing volunteer work there. This was when they were in the basement of the Science Building at Marshall, before they moved into the broadcast center that they're in now off of Smith Hall. But everything that I've done in radio, up until the time in August of 1978, when you went to Key and I went to WTCR, I kind of rode your coattails through the entire way. You worked at WWHY for about a year and a half before, and then you told me that they were looking for a part-timer to work on Sunday afternoons.
Very good.
And yeah, so this was in the December, as a matter of fact, this month in 1972, I think so.
So we're almost
1972.
Okay.
of course, in the meantime, I'd come and visited you a lot when you were on the air at WWHY. And as a matter of fact, I have the memory of the day of the Buffalo Creek flood disaster. You were on the air, and I was your assistant, tearing off the teletype copy and bringing it to you as we learned more and more about what was happening.
Fascinating.
So you and I worked together at WWHY, and we were kind of co-conspirators in some way. And the one incident I can think of one day, and you had gotten hold of a spec tape for some jingles at WWHY.
Okay.
And so we posed as the general manager of the station and called Pepper Tanner, the jingle company, and we arranged for them to send us a jingle package at WWHY. And the GM at the time, we convinced him that he was the one who actually did it.
I see.
Because he was not always in full possession of his faculties. So that was one fun thing that we went. But we became a top 40 country station because of the formatics that we were putting forth on that.
Absolutely. Well, my memories of high school include the fact that the year that I started at WWHY, I was able, I was actually the music director at every station I was ever at, except for the 3 months that I took off in 1976 to become news director at WTCR, but that's something for another show. But I was the music director at WWHY, at WCMI in Ashland, at WAMX, which was a top 40 station in 1977 when I went there, and during my entire 31-year duration at WKEE. And we used to get these boxes from Schwartz Brothers.
Yeah.
And they would have tons of singles in them. And one of the things Mr. Husted told me was, get this stuff out of here, take it all home. So I amassed this huge singles collection starting around 1971. And I will bring this up, not to embarrass ourselves, but just because it was fun. Joel and I remember, decided we wanted to do our own syndicated radio show. And we went to my bedroom at New York Street in Westmoreland, and we recorded, both did DJ work at the time, playing DJ, and we played a lot of music that nobody had ever heard. We sent it out, and according to your recollection, one radio station actually ran it.
Wait, it was a high school radio station out of Clayton, Missouri. We had, and here's the thing. In doing the show, we took the microphone and we put it in front of the speaker of your stereo, and that's how we played the music on there.
Absolutely horrible.
And yeah, and so we were canceled by the radio station because when they rose to the air, they said, well, it sounds like that it's recorded just on a little microphone, and it was.
Which it was indeed. It was indeed. Well, I remember, and by the way, I don't know whether I properly introduced you. Joel Thompson is this gentleman's name.
Oh, that's right.
But he, did I mention that before, or did I just go into Joel?
You just said Joel.
Well,
that's okay.
This is Joel Thompson, who on the air I remember as Joel Jackson.
Joel Jackson.
And Jive Talkin J.J.
The Jive Talkin one. That's
Jive Talkin J.J., which we can get into that in a few. But I remember you and I also took trips to Orleans on a weekly basis to pick up music out of the dollar bin.
Well, yeah, this would have been actually before our radio experience, I believe.
Yeah, probably so.
We would get copies of Billboard magazine and go through the top 40 and see what was new on there and everything. And we just shared a love of contemporary music. So well,
so I left WHY in 1974 thanks to the wonderful, great, iconic Charlie Dunlap, a fellow who I have nothing but tremendous respect for, and he's well known, I believe, now as a leader in sports broadcasting in this area. Um, but I'm wondering, as I moved to WCMI, uh, when I started there in 1974, I'm curious about your interaction with me at that point. Uh, uh, what first remarks you might have about your. I'm especially interested. I'm tripping over my own tongue. This is why I did a lot of pre-recorded stuff when I was on the radio. But I'm curious about my transition from Gary Miller to Gary Music Miller. And you may have some memories. You have a lot of memories that I don't have anymore.
Well, I think that you were Gary Music Miller at WWHY when we were doing the top 40 country thing.
Okay.
Now I left. I was out of the area from 74, summer 74 to 75 because I went to Parkersburg. I'd gone there for college for a year, and I worked at a TV station there. But then, as fate would have it, again the coattails came through. You said that there was a part-time position that they had at WCMI, and I said, well, give me all that you can, and so I followed you to WCMI as a result of that. Now, like I say, I believe because that we were big fans, like I said, of the Skyway.
Right.
John Records Landecker was the nighttime disc jockey at WLS.
Absolutely.
And you had told me back then that you were going to call yourself Gary Music Miller. And from what I remember, I think that started at WWHY.
It probably did, and it was funny, as you know, I started at 16, it was a job. As 16 turned to 17, 17 turned to 18, 18 turned to 19. Years of age, I realized this is not going to be a job, this is going to be a career for me. And so one of the reasons I called myself Gary Music Miller was because I needed to, one of the folks at WWHY said, if you're going to stay, you need to do one of two things. You need to either move and get out of Huntington if you want to succeed in radio, or you need to create some sort of a name that people will remember. And so Gary Music Miller became my on-air persona.
Right.
But I know he really, I speak of Gary Music Miller, really exploded at WCMI, and then when I did my first FM gig at WAMX, that's when I started going crazy, and I was the. How would you describe Gary Music Miller versus the real Gary Miller? You've known both of us our whole career.
It's a blur to me. I mean, I know you both identities so well. I really couldn't differentiate. I mean, you are a Gary, and you are a Gary Music Miller.
Well,
so
off of the air, I was shy and rather introverted and not real comfortable in settings like this, but I'm doing it.
But when the studio door closes
When the
and the
studio
on-the-air light comes on, then
the lights go down and the headphones go up.
Right. Then you ride the intro of the music, and you become the top 40 jock.
And being a top 40 jock was incredibly rewarding back then. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about now in the 1970s and 80s. And you know, people ask me about this program. I may not have explained, but again, this program is designed for you folks, and you need to correspond with us and tell us what you want us to do. So if you want to talk about old music, you want to talk about the 70s and 80s, we're here to remember, we're here to reminisce. And if there's somebody you want to see in Joel's seat next time, if there's somebody you'd like me to get a hold of that you used to listen to on the radio, get a hold of me. I'm very easy to get a hold of, and I'll talk to you about that in just a moment. I left for my 31-year gig at WKEE in August of 78, as you said. What exactly happened to you? Just kind of curious where you went from.
Well, you know, and that's the one thing that when we both went to WAMX, you went there, and then I was at CMI for better part of a year after you left. But I got fired at CMI.
Okay.
Basically, I think that they couldn't afford to pay me, not that I was making that much, but they were going through some hard times then with AM radio kind of going out of vogue.
So I made a good decision by
He
leaving.
kind of did, yeah. But Dickie Martin at WAMX, I was unemployed for like 2 weeks, and he grabbed me up, and I got a part-time gig, which turned into, because the overnight guy also did the morning news. Well, I was a journalism student at Marshall at the time.
Right.
So I took that, and I became, that's when I made the transition from playing music to basically being a news person. And again, the same week that you left for Key to have your career, I left and embarked upon a pretty rewarding career in news, exclusively in news at WTCR, and then helped start the West Virginia radio network Mountainette in Lewisburg in 1982. I've said that I've essentially done everything there is to do at a radio station. I don't think I'm Hall of Fame material because I never stayed at one place long enough or did the same thing long enough to really break through to that. But I had a wide variety of different experiences, and I think I can say I loved all the experiences that I had in radio and in TV for the 1 year that I was there.
The remembrances, let's go back real quickly. I get into WWHY at the age of 16, 1971. There is a famous photo that you have of me in a tie. I never wear a tie, haven't worn a tie in 25 or 30, probably since I got married 40 years ago. So I can't believe that I actually dressed up to come to work. But there's a photo of Joel and myself and Tom T. Hall.
Right. That was on a Saturday afternoon at WWHY. Bill Jones, who was at the time was the GM, the general manager at WWHY, interviewed him, and I engineered the interview. It was done in the studio, and
I see.
How can we explain the whole setup at WWHY? We had a TV camera, a black and white TV camera.
We certainly did.
That put the radio station on Channel 4 on cable TV, because Dick Husted, who was essentially the owner at WWHY, also invested heavily in the cable TV and
He
basically built what is now the Comcast Xfinity cable system in Huntington.
It was Husco Cablevision
Right.
at the time.
But the interview with Tom T. Hall was essentially done on TV in the production room of the radio station.
Okay. Well, what memories do you have? What names come to mind? Okay, WWHY. There's me. There's you. A lot of friends there.
Brad Henderson, Ron Likens. Of course, if I start naming names, I'll leave somebody else. I don't want to do that.
WCMI. I mentioned Charlie. One person I did not mention last time that I should have, who I have tremendous respect for, and was a great guy to work with, was a fellow who called himself Greg Elliott.
Yeah, I knew that's who you were going to talk about. You were going to mention
Elliott Geringer's his real name. I don't think he minds my knowing that. He became an engineer, and we worked again together at WKEE for many years. But Elliott did the morning show, and you may remember more about this than I do. But I must have done a show somewhere along the line or something. I would come in and do news for Greg Elliott, and
you did comedy bits, a lot of comedy bits.
4 times a
hilarious comedy bits.
I would do comedy. Yeah, we did the fake Labor Day parade for in Ironton, Ohio, I believe, which I had the sound effect of a band going from the long distance to the present, to in front of you, fading off into the distance. And I played that over and over again so that each band we introduced during the parade played the same song.
Yeah.
So, but we.
And you were Mrs. Foonman with the
I was. We did
lunch menus every day.
School menus. We had some very funny times. Foonman Winery.
Oh yeah, Foonman Winery was a
classic
staple,
dish, and just So I need to mention Greg. I we moved over to WAMX, and other than Dickie, I'm not sure who worked there with me. I think Randy Berry worked there.
Bobby Rich, yeah.
Bobby Rich,
yeah.
who passed away.
Yeah, just recently.
Recently.
And then Bob Lee, also
Yep.
known as Bob Leach,
Yep.
who is now on B97 occasionally, I believe.
And Bobby followed me on WKEE for quite
That's
a
true.
while.
That's true.
The reason I had you here was to share memories that have faded from my memory, and you've certainly done that. And I think that your being here is a perfect fit in with the last two shows we did.
Cool.
And if there's anything else you'd like to add, let me check my notes. If there's anything you'd like to add about your years with me, or your recollections of us working together anywhere, please feel free. You're not going to.
Well, I feel like I got out of radio just in time. Like I said, I think I did everything there is to do in a radio station, from jockeying to news, and then I became eventually what the on-the-air people call a sales slug.
Well, tell me a little bit about what you're doing now, so that everybody out there knows.
Well, I became a life and health insurance broker, and so what I do is I help people make good decisions about life and health insurance.
And he's carried me for quite some time and has taken very good care of me.
I occasionally write op-eds for the Herald-Dispatch. At one time, I was the radio and TV columnist for the Charleston Gazette. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not know that. No.
Yeah.
Or I knew it and forgot it.
But yeah, because I've done a lot of little things for a while, and like I say, I think I've enjoyed them all, and I've especially enjoyed all the times, and I appreciate the assistance that you've given me, because who knows if I would have actually made it into radio if I weren't on your coattails.
Well, it was a pleasure to have you follow me, and it's been a pleasure to know you all these years, and well over half my life. I do need to mention how you can get a hold of me, and how you can go get a hold of Dave and myself. And if you want to comment on today's show, please do. Our email address is...
Want me to read it?
Yeah, it's Radio Days with Gary Music Miller, abbreviated to rdwgmm@gmail.com. And if you can remember the name of the show, you can remember the email address. Right. I've had, I should mention, Leslie Carter sent me a wonderful email. Leslie, always good to hear from you. Chris Hawley sent me an email, and had Bob Hogsett, who we mentioned last, really one of the reasons that I got into radio was because Bob sat down beside me in journalism class one day when I was still in high school and asked me if I'd like to be in radio. And Chris Hawley says that Bob was his teacher. I'm assuming Chris is a he or a her, but one of the two. But Chris asks if Bob was a high school teacher at Huntington East High School, and if so, he had him, or this person had him as a lead teacher and a great teacher. And Bob was a fantastic guy and a wonderful guy, and was doing understudy work with Bill Heberlin. And then Rick Caleb's wrote me. Rick and I'm not real familiar with Rick, to be honest with you, but Rick was Rich Shannon at WGNT, WAMX, WIRO, and others. Lives now in Wellston, Ohio, I believe. And Rick, thank you for your very kind comments, and it's a pleasure to meet your acquaintance either for the first time, you may have spent time with me. There are a lot of people that came into the studio, hung out, and didn't, that I don't remember. So if I don't recall you, write me and tell me who you are. Write us and tell us what you want us to talk about. What do you want us to talk about? Radio, back in the 70s and 80s, music, your memories, just nostalgia in general about the Huntington, West Virginia, Ashland, Kentucky, Ironton, Ohio area. Write us and tell us what you want us to do. If you don't support the broadcast by letting us know you're out there, we probably won't go very much longer. So please take care. Dave, thank you for your kind direction. Joel Thompson, ladies and gentlemen, mention real quickly, great story, how you became Jive Talkin J.J.
Oh, okay. Well, I was a teen night cooker, as they call it, at WCMI.
Doing the night shift.
Right, and we did a lot of requests on the request line, and this was about the time that the Bee Gees were really coming out with their transition from being a adult contemporary into disco, and of course Jive Talkin was one of their songs, and I got a call from one of my listeners that said, "Would you play Jive Talkin J.J.?" And I said, "That sounds great. I'm going to call myself Jive Talkin J.J."
So you did.
I did, and I even when I worked at a country station after that, I was still Jive Talkin J.J.
Amazing.
At WSLW in White Sulphur Springs, when I was doing part-time work over there, when I was at Mountain Net, I was Jive Talkin J.J. So
Okay.
that's how it happened.
Well, great. Well, I'm sure I've left out a lot, but I've also included probably too much. So it's time to say goodbye for this episode. Thank you, Joel, for being here. Thank you, Dave, for your production assistance. And if it weren't for Dave, quite frankly, this would never be heard. He uploads it to and takes care of all the recording and all of that stuff. So I won't get into all that, but we will see you next time for episode 4. And until then, have a wonderful holiday season if you're watching us now. If you're watching us sometime next summer, have a good holiday season next year.
Ho,
All
ho,
right?
ho.
All right. Joel, thanks again for joining us. And thank you for watching. And please give us the best way. You can also reach me on Twitter. I'm at Gary Music Miller. Write me and I'll write you back.
Like and subscribe.
Oh yes, absolutely. Thank you for mentioning that. Not being a YouTube person, we do want you to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. If it's something that you enjoy, if you want to see us do other things, if you want to see us expound on this, like, share, and subscribe. The subscription would be nice. And thank you to the folks who have done so already. Bye for now. We'll see you next time.